said he loved me so, but heaven only.
The song starts off by saying, once upon a time, a boy with moonlight in his eyes. And it's so ironic because it's kind of how Dennis and I met. Like, you know, we met in high school and we started dating right away. And man, those first few years were just a lot of fun. One of the very first nights, like our first dates, we had gone to a concert at Kamehameha Schools, and it was like Natural Vibrations in Ho'onua, like that was the years. And that's what I remember. I remember the moonlight in his eyes.
Holding on to love, how happy we were then.
But we hit, as some couples do, we hit a rough spot in the sense that we kind of just weren't super happy with just life in general, I guess, if that makes any sense. Not that we didn't love each other, because we did. We really did. But I had started down this path toward music.
I guess you should believe it. I'm leaving, yeah.
And Dennis's goals were just a little different than mine. And for anybody that's ever been in the music or the entertainment industry, I'm sure that this resonates, because it's not an easy thing being married or being with someone that's in the music industry, just because there's a lot of late night gigs and then there's, you know, always stuff going on. The scene is a little bit, it's not the healthiest place sometimes for families. Through the rough patch, we actually ended up separating for a little while. And part of it was because he had hidden some things from me that I didn't know about and that I discovered. The whole reason that we had split was there wasn't a whole lot of trust in our relationship. Dennis was always a good person, but he grew up not feeling super loved. Like, he was an orphan, and so his whole life was wrapped up in his wife and his son. And so when we got separated, it was hard for me because I knew that about him. When we first separated, he would call me like 50 times a day, like not even kidding. This constant, nonstop calling and asking if he could come home, asking how Koala was doing. And one day he stopped calling. Then he called me one day and he invited me to come to church with him. And I was like, church? Such a liar. What you talking about, church? What church you go to? And he explained to me that he had met a group of men at work who had invited him to eat with them at lunch, and had told him the story about who they were as men in Christ. And they invited Dennis to the table, not to indoctrinate him, like it was nothing like that, but it was to provide hope and understanding that there's something out there that's way bigger than you could even ask or imagine. And so Dennis invited me to church, and we went. And I remember that very first service, like we cried the whole time because I felt like the sermon was just tailored for me and Dennis. And that day was just for Sid and Dennis to meet God face to face and come to grips with how broken our lives really were. And so we had left church that day. We had walked to the top of the stairs at church to go out the door, and Pastor Key met us at the top, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Pastor Key. You guys look new. Anything I can pray for you for?" And we couldn't even speak. Like, we just were so overwhelmed with emotion, and he just prayed for us. And at that moment, we kind of gave our lives to God, and everything changed.
So proud of you.
Wow, I got wedding music. That's so awesome.
Proud of you.
And then the end of last year, so December of 2019, right before Christmas, Dennis had to go to work, and he got a little cut on his finger at work. And we didn't think anything of it. I mean, the cut, yeah, it was kind of gnarly looking, but it was just a cut, you know, like he took care of it. He washed it. He was putting medicine on it. But then January 5th, which was only a couple of weeks later, he started to feel sick. And all of a sudden, things took a turn for the worst. And so he went to the doctor, and I took him to the emergency room, and he had developed sepsis in his bloodstream. A lot of people get it nowadays, and it's a staph infection that gets really, really bad and takes over your blood, and a lot of people can pull through it. But what we didn't know is that Dennis was also diabetic, and so it proved to be a huge complication with his recovery. I remember one night we were just talking, and he said, I don't think I'm gonna make it, hon. And I told him, stop being stupid. Things are gonna get better. God's gonna provide an opportunity for healing, and I know it. And there are moments that he was scared. I think all of us can understand that kind of vulnerability. But then there are also moments of clarity that he had where he wasn't afraid at all. But it got worse, and he had pneumonia. He developed pneumonia. They had to put in a pacemaker. His kidney function was shutting down. He couldn't move one side of his body. There's just so much. And the list kept piling up and piling up. Finally, I asked the doctor, what's the most aggressive thing that we can do? And so he explained it to me, and I said, okay, we're doing it. And I remember they told me, Sid, you can go home and rest, because we'd been there for 11 days. I went home and I went to take a shower, and we got the call. It was fast. It was so fast. So we drove back to the hospital right away. And they just didn't stop giving him CPR. It was a few hours. And there was a couple of times when the doctor, I think, wanted to call it, but the nursing staff had really come to, I think, love Dennis. And they said, we'll keep going. I said, if you want us to keep going, we'll keep going. I said, yeah, keep going. And he came back to me a couple times in that process. And then I realized at the end that I had been praying for healing for his physical body. But again, for those of you who know Dennis and who understood the life that he led, I realized in a moment of clarity that healing comes in different ways. And that the healing for Dennis that he experienced when he went home to heaven was the best kind of healing that anybody could give the man, It's been almost 10 months since Dennis's passing. And I don't want to say that it gets easier, because easy is not the right word. I think it just gets different. Even for Ko'olau, it's been a journey for him. He's 11 years old, and he and his daddy are really close. And we've also been very blessed to have an amazing support system in our lives. In addition to just our family and friends, TheVitals have been a big part of that healing for us. For nothing else but to sit and laugh with me and remind me how good life is, with a smile and with a song. Music has always been a big part of my life. Not just Vitals music, but also on the worship side for church. And I'd actually had a really hard time writing anything, and Brandon had said, write about your pain. People are going to relate to it. And I realized that we all experience death. There's nobody on this earth that's going to escape it. So the sad thing about the society that we live in is we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about death enough. We don't prepare ourselves for it. So when it happens, it's sudden and it hurts and it's deep and it lingers. And there are certain people in your life that you're never going to get over. But if we can start to normalize death, then it won't take us by surprise. And so I thought by singing about it and talking about it and sharing my own experience with it, and I'm hoping that people understand that although the song talks about pain and it talks about a very sad period of my life that again I'm probably gonna feel the rest of my life, there's hope there. You know, heaven knows exactly what your story is gonna look like.
What was what you do to me? To what you do to me? What you do to me? What you did to me? But heaven only knows.
And as much as I miss Dad, and as much as I know I'm gonna miss him for the rest of my life, you know, life does go on, and life is still really, really, really good.
To what you do to me? What you do to me? What you did to me?
If there's one thing that I hope that people can kind of walk away from in the song is that, yeah, it's painful and it hurts, but heaven only knows. None of us know. We cannot tell the end of the story, but we can live the middle and enjoy it as much as we can.
'Cause heaven